Hey everybody, hello, and thanks for, well, I gotta walk out of the frame and get my trusty guitar, okay. I'm so happy to have you here today, and I have a program lined up which I hope will appeal, and that is an examination of the score to one of my favorite films. If not my favorite film, I know it's been voted #1 greatest film of all time by the BFI. Oh yeah, this is better. Okay, I'm here today to talk to you about Bernard Herrmann's score for Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock's fantastic Vertigo, which I've seen, I said a dozen yesterday, but it must be 20 times. But that's nothing, because Jeffrey O'Brien, who's on Facebook here, I think has seen it 35 times. It bears repeating. It's just such a beautiful film, and one of the things that makes the film so great is the fantastic score by Bernard Herrmann, which I love to death, and I arranged as part of a little suite of Hitchcock music that appeared on my very first album, Skeleton at the Feast, under the title Hitchcocked. And this also came out on an album called Ciné Fantastique. And it used to be a big part of my live show. And I used to play it. Actually, I would act out bits of it. I had a folding knife, which you could terrify people by seemingly stabbing them or yourself. But the blade retracted. It wasn't a real knife by any means. And of course, in the shower music sequence from Psycho, I would apply that action. But what I want to talk about today is the influence of the music of Richard Wagner on Herrmann, which has been touched on in a few essays. Primarily, my friend Alex Ross had a beautiful piece in the New York Times in 2016 about the Vertigo score. He said it's his favorite score. It's certainly up there in my book as one of my favorite scores. And if you get a chance, pick up the recording of the original orchestral soundtrack that's conducted by Muir Matheson, British conductor. They recorded the score in England, and there was some grumbling on the part of Herrmann that they fudged passages of it, but to my ears, I think it's flawless myself, so I don't know what he was talking about, but he was famously a curmudgeon. But anyway, he had a great career doing a lot of music for Hitchcock, but also classics animated by Ray Harryhausen, who was a friend, such as Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Jason and the Argonauts. His first big commission in Hollywood was the score for Citizen Kane, which is incredible. Anyway, it's a long list of scores that Herrmann did, ending with the score that he did for Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, which actually quotes some of the Psycho music in key scenes, particularly at the very ending, as Travis drives off after almost picking up the female lead, Sybil Shepherd, at the end again. And then this ominous music plays, so you know he's probably going to lose it again. Anyway, he was the master of leitmotifs, and that is the foundation for much of Herrmann's music. But specifically, okay, I'm going to zero in on the score for Vertigo and touch on Psycho. These are the two pieces I arranged for solo guitar years ago. And so they're both of them, here's Lulu, she has a comment or two. They're both of them based on what's become known as the Psycho chord, which is basically a minor major seventh chord, which has an unresolved tension in it, which gives it its characteristic. It's sort of in between dissonance and consonance. And it's basically... Now, this chord appears as, in the opening of Psycho. Same chord. And, when I was investigating recording these, arranging and then recording these two pieces, I recognized, okay, well, Lulu's good at, thanks, Carolyn. Yeah, that there was a certain beauty about this chord, but where did I encounter this chord before? Now, one of the pieces of music that I also arranged in this time was Ride of the Valkyries, which is the beginning of Act 3 of Die Valkyrie, part of the Ring of the Nibelungen by Wagner, his famous ring cycle. And it occurs when Brunhilde and the other Valkyries are spiriting away dead warriors on the battle plains to take them up to Valhalla, where they're going to have a wonderful time up there. And anyway, so that chord is, and it's sung as hi-ya-to-ho, hi-ya-to-ho. I can't really do justice to it. You need Birgit Nilsson here, at least, or some Wagnerian Valkyrie to really do justice to it. But look, it's the same notes as Herrmann appropriated. It's the same major, actually minor, major seventh chord. So Eureka, so that was my musicological discovery, and I have not found this mentioned in any discussions of the Vertigo music, of which there have been many. Famously, there's a piece by Royal S. Brown, who's an English musicologist who delves deeply into the Vertigo score. But does he touch upon this amazing usage of this chord? No, he does not. Nor does Alex Ross, and I wrote Alex Ross about this in passing, about some other stuff too. And anyway, he has a new book out. It's called Wagnerism. I'm going to hold this up. And it's everything you wanted to know about Wagner, except for the musicological analysis, really. It's very heavy on the cultural appropriations and mythos behind the Wagner cult. But anyway, so I want to stake my claim to this discovery, and I'll play a couple of arrangements of these pieces so you get the idea. Right? I'm going to start with Vertigo. Caroline is cracking me up. Okay, thank you. Oh, I needed that. Anything, I mean, one of the reasons I fled academia was I could not stand to be cooped up in a room with my attention riveted on a pompous professor. So I tried to be anything but pompous when I'm explicating this for y'all. But anyway, back to Wagner and Herrmann. So that is the prelude to Vertigo. That's my arrangement of the opening credits, which I posted last night. It's a beautiful musical sequence over Saul Bass's amazing visuals, which partake of a close-up of a female eye, and then spirals appear like a spirographic rendering in animation of a vortex. And if you know my tastes, I'm very much into the old vortex a la Wyndham Lewis and vorticism, and that whole thing about perspective, with the vortex being the still small center of the universe, which everything else is whirling around in a cosmic dance. And that's one take on perception, is it not? Anyway, the other thing to mention about this theme is that besides using this great Wagnerian minor major seventh chord, same chord as Ride of the Valkyries, which I'll get to. Besides using that, it also cops a lot of the Tristan and Isolde Liebestod, the love-death, orgasmic climax of the great opera by Wagner, Tristan and Isolde. And in fact, the narrative of this film, which is based on kind of a French potboiler noir by Pierre Boileau and Thomas Narcejac, or Narcejac, pardon my French, Narcejac, I like that, has contemporary overtones, does it not? They had a book that's called D'entre les morts, or Between the Deaths, in the midst of death. But Hitchcock, they optioned this book because he felt cheated. The book that they'd written before this book became the foundation of Les Diaboliques, a really terrifying black and white suspense film with horror overtones, directed by Georges Clouzot, Inspector Clouseau. So Hitchcock pounced on this book, but he had 2 or 3 screenwriters on it. He shifted the location to San Francisco. But he was very aware that the narrative of both the book and his film had to have echoes of Tristan and Isolde, the main mythological theme. And I'd say he did a really good job. So he communicated this to Bernard Herrmann, Benny Herrmann, to his friends. There's an excellent biography of Herrmann by Stephen C. Smith that I highly recommend, called A Heart at Fire's Center, which goes into depth. Of course, it doesn't mention this chord appropriation, but anyway, no one's perfect. In any case, the Tristan and Isolde theme is echoed very skillfully by Herrmann in this opening scene, and then swells up and occurs in one of the penultimate scenes. If you know this film, James Stewart plays Scotty, a private detective who's retired after fudging kind of a chase, and he's falsely accused of sort of allowing this policeman to die. He falls off a roof, though I think he was quite helpless, according to the film, to do anything about it. He was hanging on a ledge anyway. And in fact, there are some people who posit that the whole film is like a Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce, that the whole thing is taking place in Scotty's mind in the split second that he's hanging on the ledge before he falls to his death. But that's just one interpretation. In any case, the theme really occurs in all of its glory, in all of its Bernard Herrmann-esque glory, in the scene where Kim Novak, who plays Madeline, who he's shadowing, this elegant society matron whose husband, the bad guy, has Jimmy Stewart followed to try and set him up on an insurance scam, which you find out later on. Anyway, she after the supposed death of Madeline, she recurs as a character in the film as a shop girl with a different color hair that Jimmy Stewart happens on in his post-freak-out, nervous breakdown recovery mode. And he transforms her, he tries to do a makeover, and pretty successfully, to dress her as Madeline, to recreate her in the image of the woman he'd fallen in love with, who's apparently dead. But of course it's the same woman. So there's one scene where he finally recognizes her as his Madeline. The camera does a 360 pan. It's beautifully and skillfully shot around the two standing there in this gauzy haze. And the music swells up, and it's very much like the chords of the Liebestod. But this motif recurs throughout the film, and it's in the prelude, which I just played. It's basically... Prelude, it's disrupted with these dissonant chords, but anyway, Herrmann leaves it alone, and it feels so great, and it resolves on a beautiful note. So anyway, it comes back again at the film, but I don't want to spoil the film for you. If you haven't seen this film, do yourself a favor and see it. I first saw it on NBC. They had one network screening of it in 1973, and I was living off campus with my dear friend who's an early AIDS victim, John Arlo, brilliant kid that I went to Andover Academy Summer School. That's where I first met him, and he turned up in my freshman class. John loved Wagner and took me to many Wagner Society meetings. He went to Bayreuth to see the Ring Cycle. He was immersed in this mythos of Wagner. And somehow his parents gave us a large color television, and it was so great to see this film finally for the first time, but it didn't have the impact on me that it did later on when I moved to New York, because it was reissued a couple of times and blown up to 70 millimeter and supposedly restored, but for purists it was done inexpertly with the color transfer and the audio transfer, so it's been fooled with over the years. I believe there's a definitive Blu-ray version out. But what TCM showed the other night looked pretty good to me. So if it comes on again, please catch this film. And anyway, I'll do a little bit of Ride of the Valkyries here to play that chord again for you. So. We gotta get this loop just so good. And that is the psycho chord there. Yes, it's a haunting when it comes back on its own volition. And in an arrangement I did of Psycho in this Hitchcock thing, it starts with that chord. It's like... So Herrmann was onto a good thing with this chord. And for further investigation of the Psycho music, check out this new channel I've discovered on YouTube called Listening In. They have a really good, very analytical, musicological discussion of the harmonic structure of the music in Psycho. And actually, some of these cues Herrmann reused in Sinbad, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. He wasn't one to let a good thing go. And many of these minor, major third chords, minor, major seventh chords appear in a variety of his music. He quotes himself quite a bit, but who does not? I mean, once you stumble on a good thing, let's just work it. So, well, I got a few more minutes. I want to thank a bunch of people, but I got to get up and retrieve my notes to do that. Just hold on. Okay. I want to thank Peter Nikolakakos. Pardon my mangling. I mean, I can barely read my own writing these days. Okay. He sent me a significant amount of money for a bunch of merchandise, including, where has it gone to? I guess I sold it to the vinyl version of The Ordeal of Civility, the last Gods and Monsters studio album produced by Jerry Harrison, with an autograph on it. Not easy to ship out. This guy lives in Ottawa, Canada, and the post office, the mail drop, the friendly neighborhood mailbox. I don't want to even name their names here, but their first estimate was $200+ to ship it. I said, no, I don't think so. We worked it down to 70, and that still seemed a lot. So it's going to go USPS. As it should. I'm glad we still have a post office. John Schick, thank you also for your generous contribution. John Alderman, ditto. Nicole Johnston, you're incredible. Tony Emmerman, so great to have you back here. And to top it off, Mark Green, who did a matching pledge for every dollar that went into the tip jar on the last show. He matched. God bless him. He's been a wonderful friend and supporter here of these shows, and so have all of you guys. And what can I say? I'd like to throw you a big party, but as we can't really do that yet, you'll just have to settle for a visitation here in our humble abode. And with that, I don't know. I don't have a lot more to say about Herrmann and Richard Wagner. Although, like many, many Hollywood composers, he was influenced by Wagner. I mean, I could tell you. Wagner and many of his circle are major influences on a lot of illustrious mid-century Hollywood composers, such as Korngold, Eric Korngold, in fact, who wrote an opera that kind of is based on the Tristan and Isolde legend. Franz Waxman, all of the great, Max Steiner, all of them from this era definitely partook of the insane roots of Richard Wagner. And what else can I say about Wagner other than, if you go to my Tzaddik album, Street of Lost Brothers, you'll hear a version of Ride of the Valkyries, played better than I could play it today. But those were different times. And I have to really get these things under my fingers. some more maybe next time. I'll do a great spiffy, clean version for you. But there's one that was recorded for Dutch National Radio. They just threw me in the studio for a couple of hours. I went to town with 2 twin reverb amps, and I think it came out quite well. But the epigraph on that album that I left was, "To defeat thine enemies, sing his song," which was a reference to Wagner. You know, because Wagner infamously was extremely anti-Semitic, at least, you know, as far as what he promulgated in the written word. There's a notorious screed of his called "On Judaism and Music," which is pretty heinous. But, you know, he also employed lots of Jewish people who acknowledged the beauty of his music. So while I'm offended a lot by what he wrote and the fact that the Nazis adopted him is really, horrible. And he himself really had no inkling that this was going to happen, so you can't blame Nazism on Wagner. But it's indelibly associated with it because Hitler frequented Bayreuth and really worshipped at his cult, but so do people like George Bernard Shaw and Friedrich Nietzsche for a while, and most intellectuals. Anyway, a lot of that is gone into Chelsea's here in Wagnerism by Alec Ross, which is one of the notable books of the year, in my view. Last but not least, I want to say I just finished reading this incredible book, Nightmare Alley, by William Lindsay Gresham, who did not write many books. Really only like 2 novels and a book about Houdini, which I read as a boy, The Man Who Walked Through Walls, a biography. But this was an amazing journey to read this finally. I'd seen the film with Tyrone Power from the 40s, which apparently they just finished remaking with Guillermo del Toro directing, and an incredible cast starring Bradley Cooper as the main carnival barker. As a grifter who's part of the carny. And my friend Willem Dafoe as the chief carnival barker. Hotley in the book, and Kate Blanchett as one of the most vicious femme fatale lady psychiatrists. I can't think of any other example on the screen. So that promises to be interesting. They wrapped it last month, according to IMDb and Variety, and it's scheduled to appear in theaters next December 2021. So I'm looking forward to that. But meantime, do yourself a favor, pick up a copy of Nightmare Alley by William Lindsay Gresham. It's blacker than black and so cynical, but beautifully written and enthralling, and I don't want to say too many superlatives about it, other than it's one of the best books I've ever read, published by New York Review of Books, and part of a great series of American and European literary classics, which they've republished. And, okay, enough said. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I love to play with you, as always. And I'll see you on Thursday. All right? Wear that mask. Stay safe. I'm praying for a good outcome tonight in the state of Georgia. Love you guys. Bye.